Hi, this is Ryan from SpringvilleOnline.com, and this is a new video that came out last month about Bigfoot, or at least a possible Bigfoot sighting. And I have never been a real Bigfoot, enthusiast. My dad spoke about him. He suspected they were real and thought he may have saw some, or had heard stories as well of other people seeing them. And I don't know, my dad had some interesting stories sometimes. Some of them I believed, some of them I didn't. But I've always been interested in the topic of other creatures. You hear about the Anunnaki, but there's a couple of things you don't hear about in history that are true, real history, like the Si-Te-Cah, which were the red-headed giants of the Humboldt County area of Nevada. The former Lake Bonneville area. You hear about Lovelock Cave possibly, and Spirit Caveman and other things. Spirit Caveman was a red-headed giant that his remains actually ended up in Ohio. They were exhumed and then taken to Ohio and never brought back to Nevada, where they were originated from. They were found in the Lovelock Cave in the early 1900s. It was 1911 and 1912, where they were pulling out, dozens of skeletons of giants, of red-headed giants. And the Si-Te-Cah is the Paiute word for these, which means tool eaters. Tool is a fibrous water plant. So in order to escape harassment from the Paiutes, according to Wikipedia, the Si-Te-Cah were said to have lived on rafts made of tulle in the lake. And they would just go out there and in the middle of this lake where the Paiutes couldn't get to them, apparently, and that was their protection, so they called them the Si-Te-Cah. It's interesting how old these are. They're 10,000 years old. These remains that they've tested. They've done DNA and radiocarbon dating on them, and they're 10,000 years old. 9,500 years old, apparently. The ones they've found. But they found these all over. You hear about Spirit Caveman. That's the one that I'm talking about here, that the Paiutes called Si-Te-Cah. But there's also what you hear about in Washington, Kennewick Man, which also was radiocarbon dated, and they took some, some biological castings so that you have skulls and, replicas of the skeleton. The remains were actually claimed by the Native Americans up there and were reburied, and with the help of the Army Corps of Engineers, they were buried under like 200 feet of rocks and dirt, so that they will never, and trees as well, so that they will never be exhumed again, or at least not likely to be exhumed again. But they did testing on them before they buried them, and that was also found to be about 9,000 years old. They found hundreds of remains in Florida in peat moss that was perfectly preserved, mummified, these ancient beings, and they also had red hair, and they had Caucasian features and things like that. It was very interesting. So my theory on this is, and this is just a portrait somebody drew. This is some sort of graphic that this Team Taser Bigfoot made after interviewing the couple that found this, that took the video. And I think that it's very possible that it could be an ape. It could be like a North American ape. A lot of people call Bigfoot North American apes. I think it could also be a humanoid that has taken on a animal fur, and either to disguise itself as an animal, not a humanoid, possibly, especially after all the hell that these people have went through with the Paiutes and with other warring factions of Native Americans. Maybe they're trying to disguise themselves by wearing animal furs to make them look like a bear or something like that, possibly. And they're very advanced. If you read about the Si-Te-Cah, they were in Utah, they were in Nevada, they were in Wyoming and other places in this area, and obviously Washington and a bunch of other places. Also, the Clovis and the Solutreans are other Native Americans that were Caucasian and had red hair. But they were found with very finely woven fabrics and amazing technology, tools, sewing needles, fish hooks, all kinds of different things that, 9,500 years ago, no humanoid was known to have in this area. So to have these things come up out of the ground and, have such advanced technology, I don't think it's beyond possibility that these creatures actually sewed themselves a animal suit. You see the big monkey suits people wear for Halloween and stuff, Why couldn't these people who are so very advanced do the same thing? The unique characteristics about these humanoid people are that they stand about 12 feet tall, and they are huge. The heads that they've found of these creatures are still in the Nevada State Museum, some of them, not all of them. Spirit Cave Man is still in Ohio. They don't know what exactly has happened to that, but the Nevada State Museum in Lovelock, the curators will talk about that, and I'll give you some of that information to follow. And it's very possible. I think that it's very possible that is what happened, is that to disguise themselves, to protect themselves, they've created their disguise from humans. And they can't just blend in. I mean, they can to a point, especially when it's warm and they don't need a coat, and they don't need to disguise, they don't need to insulate themselves. But when they do, they have to do it in a way that doesn't draw attention to themselves as a foreign creature, something that's unique. So I think that it's very possible they made themselves look like apes, or maybe they just are North American apes, another Homo erectus or something like that type of creature. I don't know, but see that little illustration with the creature on top of the creature? It looks like a baby. They suspect from some of the anomalies that they've superimposed that they can't explain, that possibly was a offspring of this creature, and that it was just held on. It was holding on to the creature, and that's what made the anomaly, that looked like dirt in the superimposed pictures of this creature. And it may have just been a lighter color from its infancy of either skin or fur, and that's what the impression was on top of this creature, was a actual offspring. So here's the actual video of this by Beard Card on YouTube. See there, that's their YouTube channel. And if you take a look at this in slow motion, which is what we're seeing now, a slow motion reenactment here, not reenactment, this is slow motion of the original footage, you can see the humanoid features in it. That doesn't look like a bear to me, because you see the arm. I don't know if you can see it right here. It swings like it's a human arm, and it's got shoulders and a head just like a human. It walks upright, kind of slouched, kind of monkey-like in its demeanor and its posture when it walks. But watch this. It's just fascinating. See, this is where they run, but it plays it over and over several times, and it's just fascinating. Here it comes. It's going to slowly rise, and then you can see its fully erect features as it starts walking away, or briskly walking away is what it appears to be doing. They only kept it on for a split second longer, as it walked away or whatever, but its view from the rear, as you see it, see how it comes up and its elbows flex and bend, and then its arm kind of moves forward as if though it's swinging its arm to walk. That's interesting. And it's not a bear, if you ask me. It could be a hoax. It could be either the people who made the video making a hoax, or it could be somebody else in the wilderness. And that's what these people have proposed as possible ideas here. These Team Taser Bigfoot people have proposed on this, possibly a hoax. But I don't know. I'm not convinced about that. This seems pretty authentic, and I've never seen anything like it. My dad, when I was a kid, talked about these. Hearing about them and seeing something that looked like them. In the wilderness when we were hunting, he would say, hey, could be something over there or something. And I always had that in the back of my head. It's not something that's a hobby of mine. I just think that it's interesting. But I've talked about this, and I thought to myself, hey, if this is what they say it is, if this is humanoid, or if it's a Si-Te-Cah or a Solutrean or a Clovis, which were the original inhabitants, that migrated here from Europe, 17,000 years ago. If it's one of them, then very possibly it could be advanced enough to survive possible war, pestilence, disease that we can't. I think that our bodies are not nearly as strong as they used to be, in our ancestry, in our distant ancestry. I think that we used to be much stronger physically, but now we're much stronger mentally, more than we were before. But I think our physical traits have deteriorated because we haven't had to use those as much, because our brain has been able to sustain our life better. Our brain has been able to provide things that our body used to provide, like food and shelter and things like that. So we don't work as hard, and we don't rely on our physique as much. And so I think we're more susceptible to disease and hunger and world tragedy. And I think people should just leave these things alone, whatever they are. Who knows? Whatever they are, human, ape, bear-like, whatever. I think it's best just to. They don't want to be messed with. I don't think we should mess with them. They're rare enough that to exterminate them could be devastating for future possible consequences in this world, and I think we should just leave them alone. But I'm gonna play you a couple of things here about the Si-Te-Cah, the Solutrean, and the Clovis, just to explain my theory about this. Oh, and you can get more information from these people too. These are the people who did this interview. You can see on the screen here their email, teamtaserbigfoot@hotmail.com, or taserbigfoot.com is their site. So let me just.
And why is that? I believe it's because it has actually happened in the past.
Could these ancient tales of enormous creatures, half human, half beast, be rooted in truth? And if so, is there any evidence these giant hybrids really existed? Lovelock, Nevada. In the early 1800s, local legends passed down by the Paiute Indians told of a race of giants who were exterminated by their tribe. It is said this was done by trapping the giants in a cave, shooting arrows at them, and then starting a large fire at the mouth of the cave. Evidence of the slaughter lay undisturbed until the early 20th century.
Lovelock Cave was first discovered by local ranchers who were looking for bat guano to use in their fields.
In need of fertilizer for their crops, the ranchers removed nearly 10 feet of guano-enriched soil from the surface of the cave.
And then they began finding human remains. They found up to 40 or 50 people inside this cave. One was allegedly 7 feet, 7 inches tall. They all had long, red hair and were literal giants.
If these skeletons were the remains of the legendary red-haired giants, were they visitors from distant continents?
Throughout the 19th century, many giant skeletons were allegedly discovered in the Midwest, also in parts of California and around Death Valley. And the skeletons here found at Lovelock are one of the few that were really excavated by an accredited university.
Archaeologists from the Nevada Historical Society and the University of California believe the cave was occupied from approximately 1500 BC until a few hundred years before white men appeared in the Nevada territory. 75 miles from the cave site, a local museum has preserved several skulls that some believe are recovered remains of the giants.
Inside this cabinet here are 3 skulls from the Lovelock Caves. When you first see these skulls, they seem to be pretty much normal looking skulls. However, it's when we really start to compare the jawbones with this modern dental impression of a normal adult male that we see that these jawbones are unusually large. And these are really the skulls of giant people who were perhaps 7, even 8 feet tall. One of the odd things with these skulls is that they're not actually put on display here at the museum, and they're kept hidden in this cabinet. Now, we don't know if that's really just out of respect for the Native Americans, or whether there's really something unusual about these giant skulls that they don't want them to display.
Are the Nevada bones evidence of a race of giants that existed all through early human history?
So there's one, and then I'll show you another one from the Nevada State Museum in Lovelock here, and this is the curator at the museum talking about these bones, these skeletons, and the spirit caveman that they exhumed and that ended up in Ohio and never came back to Nevada.
At the Nevada State Museum in Carson City, I'm here with the curator of anthropology, Mr. Gene Hattori. Here we go, Gene. Hi, how are you doing today, Gene?
Pretty good, Jaime.
Okay.
We're here at the museum's Under One Sky exhibit, and this particular display discusses the legend of the Si-Te-Cah. And these are the red-headed giants of the Humboldt Sink, and probably get about a call every couple of months about an inquiry about, do you have the skeleton?
Yeah, I think that's how we...
The red-headed
giant. Met. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and no, we don't. But the story is that the Nevada Historical Society had the skeleton of this giant, and it was loaned to the St. Louis Exposition in 1904. And the skeleton, unfortunately, never made it back to Nevada, and that's the story that we tell. We have some human remains, Native American human remains, but none of them are giant. The Si-Te-Cah story is that the Paiutes have a legend that when they came into the area, there were some red-headed giants, and these giants were occasionally hostile to the Paiutes in that they waylaid them and occasionally ate them. Which wasn't particularly appealing to the northern Paiutes. They went as far as trying to incorporate them into their culture, which they may have done so successfully in some instances, in that we have a story from Sarah Winnemucca that she believed that she may have had some Si-Te-Cah genes, some Si-Te-Cah blood, because she had some strands of red hair, and these were the red-headed giants. But basically, the Si-Te-Cah were eventually cornered on the edge of the Humboldt Sink and rounded, more or less retreated into the Lovelock Cave, an interpreted site south of Lovelock, Nevada, that you can visit. But the Si-Te-Cah went into the cave, and to protect themselves, they piled brush in front of the mouth of the cave. The Paiutes shot burning arrows into the brush and burned the Si-Te-Cah up, and they perished. And the legend has it, and you can see the charring on the roof of the cave.
Interesting. That'd be interesting to go out there.
Yeah. Yep. And like I said, you can check in with the Bureau of Land Management, and they have brochures that will guide you there.
So anyway, it's about as deep as I can go on that with what limited time I've got. In fact, I may have to upload this on an alternative account just because I don't have a lot of rights on YouTube to upload long videos. This is going to be 20 minutes. So you can check us out at www.springvilleonline.com, and you can also see more at taserbigfoot.com. And if you look on YouTube, this is the person who actually filmed it. Beard Card is what they call themselves. They haven't released their full name, but apparently the guy's name is Justin, but they don't give their last name or their face, or they're not really trying to gain exposure to themselves on this. But they've presented this, and it's pretty interesting. I don't know what it is, but it's interesting.